Hello there everybody, welcome to the first ever video of Movie Time with BM. It's always movie time here, and this is my first ever video right here on YouTube, and I cannot wait to bring you guys more content in the future, showing off the magic of movies and the passion that I have for the world of entertainment. Today we will be discussing why I think that The Mandalorian has saved Star Wars. Firstly, The Mandalorian has gotten people interested in Star Wars again. After all of the money that Disney has lost and a pretty big chunk of the main fan base, it is good to see so many people return to the universe after being turned off Star Wars from the sequel trilogy are coming back in a big way to watch Mando and crew over the seasons while enthusiastically waiting week after week for the next episode to see what happens next in the story. Especially with the return of Luke Skywalker in the Season 2 finale, it got people talking about seeing their hero return in his true form after seeing how he turned out to be later on in the sequel trilogy. With all of the other spectacular arrivals to the show, such as Boba Fett and Bo-Katan, among the arrival of Ahsoka Tano, which was fantastic to see. Her journey from the Clone Wars cartoon to the live-action debut of the character in The Mandalorian. Some people say that these characters only served as fan service, but as much as they could be fan service, they also helped to drive the plot of the story by helping The Mandalorian in his cause to protect Grogu. It is a fantastic start to a new era of Star Wars content by having TV shows instead of movies. The reason that The Mandalorian works as a TV series rather than a movie is that in a show you can spend more time in episodes and can explore more of the story over a season rather than a 2-hour movie. This way, if the episodes are around 40 minutes long and there's about 8 episodes, you would get about just under 5 hours of story rather than an actual movie's length of about 2, sometimes 2.5 hours. From the money that Disney has lost due to the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens was the only movie in the trilogy to make over $2 billion. But this was when it was the return of Star Wars movies, and people were interested in this first movie to see what the future of this new Star Wars trilogy holds. As the sequels progressed, The Last Jedi made around $1.3 billion, and The Rise of Skywalker, being the final movie in the Skywalker saga, just barely making $1 billion. Recently, Hasbro released a 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm toy line. It features characters from both the prequel and original trilogy with no sight of any of the sequel trilogy characters. This just shows that even toy companies have lost faith in the sequel trilogy and knows that they don't sell. When The Last Jedi came out and everyone saw that movie, no one was buying toys. I even remember seeing photos of a clearance section with Rose Tico selling for 50 cents. You would think that Star Wars toys would sell, but as we see from the other eras of Star Wars, they do sell. Now, with The Mandalorian, a prime example of a big seller is Grogu, or Baby Yoda toys, selling out as fans loved the character, as well as having a cuteness factor in there as well. On Disney Plus, however, the Season 2 finale ended up crashing the Disney Plus servers, as when everyone frantically were trying to watch the final episode without being spoiled, technical problems arose from everyone tuning in to watch The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. The Mandalorian also, in my opinion, has better story and character development over the sequel trilogy. An example of this comes from the sequel trilogy's main character of the sequel trilogy, Rey. Across the sequel trilogy, we learn early on that she can be overpowered in certain parts of the sequels. In my opinion, because of the lack of backstory until later on in the trilogy, where she finds out that she is actually the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. From flying the Millennium Falcon for the first time with Han Solo, it seemed like she was an experienced pilot, but in reality, Rey had always been a scavenger on Jakku. Another prime example of this is when she wielded a lightsaber and fought Kylo Ren for the first time in The Force Awakens in a lightsaber duel. She ends up besting Ren, who has the Skywalker bloodline and who had been trained in both the light and dark sides of the Force, and would have had years of experience over Rey. Sure, for plot armor, she needed to best Kylo Ren in order to establish herself, but you don't have a compelling story where your main character, who had had no experience in saber combat, beating the movie villain in the first movie, making the villain look weak in the process, and undermining the villain as no threat to the hero from the beginning. If they would have had Rey lose to Kylo in The Force Awakens, then she could have reflected on the duel and she could have trained to defeat him over the saga, where she had some proper training and could have actually held her own against him. Now in Mando's case, in the start of the show, he was one of the best bounty hunters around, after being in guilds and growing up around his people, being fellow Mandalorians as well. He doesn't just start accepting bounties without years of experience of honing his craft and picking up bounties, which he does over time. And instead of just picking up random powers like Rey, mind-tricking a stormtrooper to escape her chamber, without ever displaying knowledge of it before. Din Djarin, which is Mando's actual name, completes top bounties across the galaxy to uphold his reputation as one of the top bounty hunters, while also upgrading his suit to Beskar armor, which is the traditional armor that Mandalorians use, and to also add multiple different weapons to his arsenal. Also, as the show progresses, Din's motives start to change. At first, he did follow the Mandalorian creed of always keeping a helmet on and never taking it off in front of other living beings. But when he ends up not completing the bounty, which was to take Grogu alive to be tested of his Force sensitivity, and ends up rescuing him in his custody instead. By doing this, he starts to change as a character, from being a cold-hearted bounty hunter to becoming a father figure to Grogu, and forms a strong attachment to him. Over the show's 2 seasons so far, this father-son bond was built with Mando taking Grogu under his care and providing protection from Moff Gideon, who wanted to take Grogu for his Force-sensitive blood to experiment with. I'm not denying that Mando doesn't have plot armor, because he does. The difference is, however, that we as an audience are invested in his story and the adventures of the Mandalorian, whereas with Rey, we do follow her along, but we can't connect with her on the same level as Mando, because we have seen what he has been through and have followed him along all of his journeys with curiosity, and when we want to sympathize with him, when he has to say goodbye to Grogu when Luke takes him to be trained. We feel anger when Moff Gideon takes Grogu captive on his ship, knowing that his life could be in possible danger. We see that Mando will do anything to save the child, as he breaches his creed when he takes off his helmet, which up to this point he has never done in front of others, to directly trying to reason with Moff to hand over the child, which of course he doesn't comply and strikes him with the Darksaber with his back turned, while trying to pick up the child from the bench that he was sitting on. If The Mandalorian did not exist and all we had was the sequel trilogy, Star Wars would not be in a good place as a movie franchise. Before The Mandalorian came out, interest in Star Wars was dropping, as most of the fans disliked the sequels, and the once invincible reputation of Star Wars was starting to go down the gutter, as more and more fans were only negatively talking about the franchise, which is bad for Disney because they are losing financially, as they ruin Star Wars for millions of people by having stories that divide fans rather than bring them together, like The Mandalorian has. When Luke Skywalker came to the rescue in the Season 2 finale, lots of people were talking while making Star Wars relevant again, and also giving it a second chance for Star Wars to reclaim the magic that it once had. The fact that one episode of The Mandalorian crashed the Disney Plus servers speak volumes to the amount of interest that is in this show from the fans. Another positive is that it also brings casual fans to the franchise with the addition of Baby Yoda, who is otherwise known as Grogu. As we all look forward to the future of Star Wars, with the book of Boba Fett coming out later on this year, and Mando Season 3 coming out next year, and with all of the other series that are in development as well, such as the Kenobi show, Andor, and etc. Star Wars is coming back in a big way, and it's thanks to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni for creating a masterpiece of a show. Sure, the show does have some flaws, but it is overall, in my opinion, a great story that unites the fandom once again. Therefore, that is why I think that The Mandalorian has saved Star Wars. This is the way. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing if you enjoy my content. And may the Force be with you always.